Okay, we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our fourth Student Voices Roundtable. This is super exciting. We have a pretty good group today, and we're probably going to have some more people come in as well. So, some things, we're live from Arts at NJ, which is the organization that you guys probably found us through. And then, if you need to learn more about this organization, you can go to www.artsatnj.org. And so, I'll be putting up banners about all that sort of stuff. And then also some things. These students are from all different grades and all different age ranges, and so we're going to talk to them individually. And if you have any questions, which is about the conversation or for a student individually, please put it in the comment below, and I'll read it and then put it out. So that's super, super exciting. And here is our link to our website where you can navigate to everything that we're probably going to talk about. And I'll add any other links that the students mention. And so we're going to introduce ourselves. I'm Jocelyn Jeffries. You know me from all of the streams and all of the such as that, but we're not going to talk more about me. We're going to pass it to Glow, and we're going to go down from there. Okay, so Glow, you go first.
Hi, I'm Glow. I've mainly been doing theater majority of my life, and I also slightly specialize in visual arts.
Hi, I'm Camilla. I dance, and I've danced my whole life.
I'm Chloe. I'm a sophomore. My specialty is theater, and I just started choir back up again from elementary school.
Hi, I'm Matt. I'm 18 years old. I'm a senior, and my specialty would be acting and theater.
I'm Andrew. I'm also a senior. My thing is music.
Hi, my name's Anika, and my specialty would be speaking.
I like the speaking. So there's multiple different things which are going under the umbrella of speaking. So that's super exciting. So we're going to do an icebreaker where we talk about what are some things that have been a really great part of your arts education classes. So it can be any of the ones you've ever taken. It could be things which came back after the pandemic, which is exciting, things like that. So anybody can start and go from there. And this can also be extracurriculars, because I know some people don't have classes or don't do classes as well.
Okay, so one thing that's really helped about taking something like dance is I can just when I go to school, I'm excited for that class. I get to be free with it because I get to express myself, and my teacher really helps with it too. And I'm some kids aren't able to take dance after school or go to a studio or something like that. So that also comes in handy if you have a passion for dance and just get to take it in school.
It's super cool that your school has dance. I've been going to we've been hosting tables, and I've been going to a lot of tables, and a lot of schools don't have dance. My school that I grew up in didn't have dance, and so it's a very specialized thing to have at a school, and it's nice that your school supports the arts in that way. Okay, whoever can go next.
Yeah, I mean, to jump off of that point, I have never heard of a school that besides an actual performing arts school that would have dance classes. So that's super cool. Yeah, I mean, for me, the pandemic, I think, kind of put, at least for the people here that are in performing arts or, music or anything that require people to be in the audience in order to kind of move your art forward in the audience. Yeah, I think the pandemic has really kind of put a stint in that. And I think in order to have that be moved forward, you also need to learn. And classes obviously went virtual, and trying to learn, at least from an acting standpoint, any technique or how to work with a scene partner over a little box isn't really effective. So I think being in person back in theater classes is really important. For me, we only have a certain amount of theater classes that you're allowed to take, kind of in your trajectory at school. Because I go to just a public school. I don't go to a performing arts high school. I'm lucky enough that our theater program is really good. But so once my trajectory was kind of done, I came in my senior year not really having a theater class, and I was lucky enough that they let us kind of do like an independent study where I get to kind of study whatever part of theater I want. So I get to study a show. I mean, my favorite contemporary show would be The Last 5 Years. So being able to actually do an independent study of that show has been really cool, since I wasn't able to kind of do any theater from the pandemic.
That is super cool, being able to choose what you're focusing on in that. So it's like kind of like a passion project. And so that leads into things that we talk about with Arts and NJ, which is like SEL, which we'll probably talk about more. And I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's social emotional learning. I'm sure multiple people in the audience have heard of it if they tune into most of our streams. But it's social emotional learning, and we're pushing for that to be in all of the things that we learn in school, but especially it's really well done through art. And so that's something that's really nice is the ability to do that. So whoever can go next.
Yeah, I would say.
Sorry.
You can go if you want.
I was just gonna say I totally agree with everything Matt said. It was really hard, like going into high school in the middle of the pandemic and being excited to take a drama 1 class, and then realizing that everyone's kind of in this state of blah because no one enjoys learning anything over like Zoom. So acting is like hard enough on its own. Separately, yeah, that's all I wanted to add.
I would say social and emotional learning, it's like a really big part of speaking because I compete in like a part of an organization. So like some of the speeches I give are like really centered on social and emotional learning. But about the pandemic, for us, tournaments sort of went online. So there was that barrier between like, you know, speaking to like a live audience and then sort of just like looking at the green dot on your computer. There was definitely a difference there. But tournaments went online. We're slowly getting back into in-person tournaments. My first one is actually this weekend. But about speech and debate, it's more like one thing that really helped me was just sort of experience. So like in the very beginning, I would like go to a bunch of tournaments, fail miserably, get like ranked at the very bottom, and then like look at these judges' comments and sort of like improve. And I'd go back to my club, and like all of our teammates would sort of just like gather in a circle and like talk about what we can improve on, and like sort of share like our ballots and see like what part in our writing or like our presentation could improve. And then we'd go back and fail again and then do the same cycle all over again. And then eventually we would hit the point where we would kind of realize like, this is where we are going wrong. This is what we can improve on, and this is how we can do better.
Definitely. I'm going to be at that tournament if it's the NJSDL tournament.
Yeah, states is coming up.
Well, there you go. Then I'll see you there. And it's awesome that the state competition is going to be in person.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, because that'll add a whole new level of challenge is having to look directly in someone's eyes while you speak at them. Okay. We still need Andrew and Glow.
I can go. I think so. I mean, of course, everyone's sort of focused on like what has been lost over the pandemic. But I think, if anything, it's given me a much greater appreciation for what we still had and what we still have. Last June or so, we were originally going to be doing sort of like a cabaret at our school outside, and the last minute got moved indoors. And it was this super amazing emotional night because after 15 months, it was the first time that anyone had really been in our auditorium and so on. And it's moments like that that really just sort of solidify like, okay, this is why we do it, because it was such an incredible feeling for everyone I know on stage and the pit like me and the audience, like the parents and families and friends of these people performing. It was just an incredible feeling. I think that sort of even the people who may not have been as invested in their schools art programs, who were still participating in that stuff, sort of then it clicked for them, okay, this is why I should be doing this. And now I think a lot of people that I know are doing it for those reasons. Just an amazing thing that happened as a result.
That's awesome. And having that electricity back for sure. because just like Matt and Chloe said, and Nika, everyone who's doing live performance, that's a different level of electricity, and it's what gives you, beside the art of it, it's what gives you part of the drive to do it again and again, is that connection. So Chloe, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. So when the pandemic like first started, I've been doing theater like that whole school year. I was in 5th grade at the time. And as soon as it started, we were already in the middle of this one play. We were doing Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, and like in the middle of it, where like the pandemic started, it kind of just like it was really hard to do everything because everything was online. You had to like join all these Zoom meetings, and like there were all these different things that made it super difficult. But then when in-person learning came back around, it finally got like a lot easier, and it's like better to express myself honestly, because it's kind of just like that one feeling of like everything kind of dropped, and then it's like, okay, you know what, I'm just gonna be out there more now and try to like do better, because I know when I was in when the whole pandemic was worse back then, I was very quiet. I did not turn on my mic a lot.
Okay. Glow is the youngest person that we've had on the Student Voices. She's in 7th grade, and so it's nice to have students from 7th grade up to senior year, and we even have college students sometimes. And so it's great to have that level of connection across the board, because we've all experienced very similar things, especially right now where we have the uniting force of having to do Zoom classes, which are just peachy, aren't they? We love them. They're great. So I wanted to talk about, I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Soul. This is not super relevant, but they have a spark in it. And I was thinking a lot about it before I saw the movie. Obviously, I saw the movie when it first came out, so that was a long time ago. But I want to know, what are some things that sparked your love of the thing which you do now? And also, where do you want to go with it?
Okay, sorry, I saw other people. So I think what really got for me at first, because at first it was just a thing that I did in like elementary school and middle school, but it was that then I started to make friends through it, and then it became less of a thing for me and more of a thing for the group. And I think that connection, where it's that realization that, you know, I now have people that I care about, that I'm doing this thing with, so thus I care about the thing. I think that really is what, you know, sparked loving music for me. And it's the kind of thing where, even though, you know, as a senior, I have other friends who are like interested in, you know, majoring in music that I would still love to play with, but I know we're going to be going different places. It's kind of thing where, like, even over the summer, I know it's going to be, yeah, let's still get together because I still love you guys. I still want to make music with you guys.
I can go.
Yeah, of course.
So I do have to admit, I was forced into going into speech and debate, like when I first started. And it was partly because my older brother was like doing debate at the time, and my family was like, "Oh yeah, you should do it too. You should give up your weekends too." And I was like, "I don't really want to do it." I was sort of forced into it. But I guess the thing that like really made me fall in love with speaking is that when you have a speech and you like deliver this like really amazing piece of rhetoric, or like you hit like your impact point, and then there's like this silence in the room and you can tell it like hit people, right? And if there's like one person in the room that was like, that's my story, like this is me, and if I feel like if one person even had that reaction, then it feels like it was all worth it. Because like when you deliver that one piece or something that like really hits, there's like sort of that connection like between you and the audience, and that like feeling, it's sort of like a high whenever you're delivering a speech. So that's like what really made me fall in love with speaking.
We have a comment, which is from my coworker, Julia, and she said, "Shout out speech and debate, break a leg to you and your teammates at the States this weekend." She was part of the same competition in JSDL, so very exciting. And that's interesting that it became something that you loved. and because you saw the virtues in it and then you experienced it, and that's really beautiful. And you guys can comment to each other as well.
Chloe, do you want to go? You can go. Yeah, you go for it. You go for it.
Okay. For me, I started like really little. I started dancing, and it was just like, a lot of little girls like dance and then they don't really follow through with it, and I didn't really follow through with it either. But through it, I found out that I just like performing in general. So I was like, man, I don't want to dance, or I don't want to just dance. I wish there was something else to do. And then I figured out that theater existed, and I started doing it in 2nd grade, and I've been keeping up with that ever since. And of course, you start to fall in love with like, oh, I get to sing and dance, and it's great, and you feel super talented, and everyone's looking at you, and that's fun. But then you realize there are a lot of important and interesting stories that are meaningful in other people's lives that you get to tell through this way that speaks to you. So I think it makes it 10 times more meaningful that you both enjoy doing it and that there are important things to talk about with it.
Yeah, I mean, to jump off of that, I think at least my path to getting to theater was a little bit different. I had started. The first thing I had done was music. So I play like 4 instruments, and it was mostly only because I was bored. When I was younger, friends were not a very accustomed thing for me, which was fine. I mean, it resulted in me finding something that I really love doing. So, I just played instruments and, figured out how to do that. And then from there, I had an opportunity to do some community theater, which was really cool. And then I never did it again. I was probably entering 5th grade when I did that. I played Winthrop in Music Man, which was super fun. And I never did it again until probably about middle of my 7th grade year. I really kind of stayed away from it because I had just sang and played guitar and stuff, and I didn't really think there was anything to it. And then from 7th up until now, obviously, I've done any show that I can possibly be in. But as an actor, I think that there's something to be said for, I mean, the amount of preparation that you do and the amount of, circumstance that you put in front of you. But I think there's a serious state of mind that you enter. And I don't think it's a state of love nor hate. I think it's a serious state of equilibrium that you enter as an actor, at least in order to be present in the scene or the piece of work that you're performing. And I saw Soul, and that was a crazy movie for me because it put a lot of what I think being a musician or being an actor in the moment of performing, not talking about it, not saying how much you love it, not, I think all of that is great. For someone like me who no one really cared what I was doing until I showed any ability to be good at it. I never was really able to put into words what that thing does. And that movie for sure, it's a state of equilibrium in a sense, I think, because you're creating a false, at least as an actor, I can't speak on behalf of musicians and I can't speak on behalf of speakers. I'm an awful speaker. So Anika, kudos to you. And I'm also an awful dancer. So to both of you who dance, I am awful.
Music Man is rough to be in if you feel like you're an awful dancer.
It was a rough go. It was a rough go. But I was young, so they didn't care. Because a 9-year-old dancing, they were like, "Hey, he's cute." So I could get away with it. Now, when I suck, it's not too fun. But I definitely think that it's a weird thing when you're actually performing, not when you're talking about it. And I think that that's what I love about it more so than being in it.
Definitely. And we have a comment from Wendy, who has been on multiple streams in the past and is is a pillar in the arts education community. She said, "Love that idea of sharing stories and learning from those stories through theater." Absolutely. And then also just a shout out to anyone who's new, because a bunch of people just came on. We are accepting comments down below, and so if you have any questions or any questions for specific people, please put them down below and we'll pass them on. So it is beautiful to tell stories, and I think something interesting that Anika put out was that it's their story, and Chloe I think mentioned that too, where when you're performing or when you're presenting a piece, people can see themselves or see their experiences in it. And that's such a valuable thing, and we saw it in the pandemic, we've seen it throughout all human history, that art is a transcendent thing that we all need. And we all need it either in the creation of it, because some of us need it to create, and some of us need it just to experience. And either way, it's very important. And so you guys can keep chatting.
I think like what's really important to me, like for dance specifically, it's like we get to express ourselves, and like everyone said here, like that feeling of performing and like making like the audience like just feel like what you're dancing. Luckily my school has like after school program that we get to choreograph dances ourselves. So like I'm choreograph a dance right now, like I did it last year. Like through the pandemic it was definitely more difficult and like trying to like see it visually, but ended up like turning out amazing. And it's just like you feel good about yourself because like you teach someone your skills and like everything, like what's in your brain, and you kind of just like throw it at them, and it's just so cool to see it like come out towards the end.
It's the creation of a full piece. It's putting your emotions and your experiences into a piece. I'm writing a couple scripts right now. I was part of the Governor's Awards as well. I know Matt knows some things about that. That's very exciting. But I won one for film, and I still do film. I've done film for about 4 years, and I'm writing scripts about. I realized I came up with an idea the other day, or I guess a couple months ago, because I'm still writing the script, and I realized like it was built out of an anxiety, like a part of my anxiety that I had, and I didn't realize until I had already done it. And so that's just it's interesting to realize these things about yourself and learn about yourself, and then learn about the things and people around you through that. So that's definitely interesting. And so what are some things that are opening up that you guys are super excited about? Because I know that there are things coming up in the future that are exciting for all of us. And then also, if you guys ever want to address other questions or come up with your own, that's okay too.
I think something that's been really cool that I've got to experience is that how many things that are sort of like connecting different schools and different communities together are coming back. One of the biggest bummers for me last year was that all of the like NJMEA honors ensembles were all cut except for like all state orchestra, but it was still virtual. So having that come back and being able to reconnect with people from other schools they wouldn't see otherwise, and again make new friends through that, was such an awesome experience that I can't say enough how thankful I am for and how much I recommend. Because it really is so cool to see people from all these different backgrounds with entirely different programs at their schools and sort of get to bounce off each other ideas and things that you wouldn't get otherwise.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with Andrew a ton. I think the openness, especially being able, I mean, with other schools, is super important. I mean, for theater, it's a little bit difficult, at least from a high school standpoint, because you're kind of locked into the people that get cast and your school's theater department. But like Jocelyn mentioned, which was super nice, thank you, was the Governor's Awards, which at least for me, I don't know how it was facilitated for you, but for me, it was facilitated through Stange, which I think it stands speech and theater, and it's a very long acronym. But it stands for a lot more. Basically, they control a lot of theater stuff in regards to New Jersey. And I was lucky enough to compete in it along with a bunch of kids from my school and other schools. And I was lucky enough that I won the governor's award for best actor, which is super awesome and not expected at all. But that is a situation where I think schools are able to compete against one another, and you get to meet other theater students. I mean, this year, unfortunately, it was going to be in person, and then it went virtual like a week before, which was awful because it was around the December-ish time, like December going into January, when everything like shot up again. So we kind of got screwed in that regard. And I was lucky enough that I got to go as a freshman, because sophomore year obviously didn't happen. So I was able to go as a freshman and kind of just compete in a couple of scenes and kind of just be a fly on the wall. You know, I didn't like win anything. I was kind of just there to observe. And then obviously this year I was a much more successful candidate. But that for sure. And I mean, my school just got done doing Les Mis, which was quite rough go on the voice, but being able to do like live theater for people is really cool. Not have to do it outside or in some weird setting that theater shouldn't always be done in. It's very cool.
To add on to oh God, I almost called you a name that was not yours, Matt. I remember I entered in Stanch this year for the first time, and I've heard so much about how exciting it is and competing in it, and I feel like I didn't get to enjoy it because my first year competing was virtual. And like you said, I totally feel the whole fly on the wall thing, because I also didn't win anything. But it was nice to see all the other schools enter and watch all their entries and be happy for them, and like just appreciate theater all around, even if it's not from like locally.
And for those curious, Stange is the Speech and Theater Association of New Jersey, and we're very close partners with them. And I remember I came from the NJ Thespian side, and I never went to Stange, and there was always like this weird rivalry, but we were both providing very similar things, and it was a very valuable resource on both fronts. And it's wonderful to hear you guys talk about these festivals that are happening and that are changing trajectories and changing experiences, which is really great. Do we have any more answers to that question? Because I have some other ones that we can hop onto.
I can go.
Yeah.
I totally understand what you guys are saying too, because when I was in 8th grade, like I think I was just going into like my first states and district tournaments, and then the pandemic happened and it was cut, and then the next 2 years it was virtual. So like states and districts was virtual, like our regionals and nationals was virtual. So like the first year I ever went to nationals, it was online and it really sucked. But this year, especially those upcoming tournaments, like states is this week, districts is the next week, TOC is in a month or two, and then nationals is in June. And those tournaments are all in person. So I'm like really pumped about going to those. But just like after a 2-year break of just doing like all those firsts online, it's just really awesome to be going to some in person. It would be my first states in person.
Sorry, I was listening. My cat opened my door, so I'm having somebody come close it. That's really cool, though, that there's more competitions happening, because my last 2 years, my junior and senior year, was when we were first kind of getting into having virtual competitions. And I'm sure we got there's only a certain level which you can get with virtual competitions. It's just the way it is, because it's you forget the downtime that you have where you're talking to people and you're getting to know people and you're sharing those experiences, which is a lot of what art is. So do we have any more comments before we move on to our next discussion? Okay, rock and roll. So this one's kind of a throwback question. We have a couple throwback questions because in preparation for this roundtable, I was like, let's go look at the second one and the first one. And so I want to know what inspires you guys during this time. What are some things that you've been thinking a lot about? And this can just be in general, and this can also be based in art. It can be about anything.
No, that's a good question. I think I mean, for me it's hard. I think inspiration can be a lot of different things for a lot of different people, which I think is why it's such an individual answer. From an acting standpoint, which is all I know, so it's all I'm going to talk to. I would say, and I think this might be shared, is an audience reaction, in a sense that they feel something, whether that be happiness or sadness or melancholy or whatever the case may be. I think that all of us are doing art as much for ourselves as we're doing it for other people. I think that there's a reason why people go to the theater, and it's because they want to see a story. And I don't think that they'd rather just see the story happen in front of them and not have any connection to it whatsoever. Some people do, and some people like to enjoy theater that way. I'm not going to judge them for that, but I think a lot of people go to see a story unfold that they can connect to, or that they can be affected by. There are shows that I've been in where I've struggled as an actor to keep my composure because of the audience visibly being in a state that they weren't too pleased to be in. I mean, Spring Awakening I did over the summer, and I don't know if any of you know that show, but it's not exactly a nice ride for the audience at all. It's quite an uncomfortable experience the whole way around. And leading a show like that by a director that was really connected to the piece, and worked really hard. I mean, we got to do it outside, and our last show during the last number, it downpoured. I mean, we're doing a song of Purple Summer in a downpour, and they kept going. Like, we finished the whole thing out, and it was great. But something like that, I struggled as an actor throughout that whole piece because I was able to watch people actually be affected by it, which I had never seen before. But I think that inspires me. And from a non weird artsy fartsy place, I mean, getting into college inspires me to work really hard. Getting into theater school is really hard. And I think trying to be good at what you do, or at least find a sense of uniqueness to what you do so that you can separate yourself from others in a pool where there's a lot of people that do the same thing as me and that may sound or act and look like me. Finding uniqueness and I don't know, ingenuity within your work.
Yeah, Matt, I definitely agree with you. Especially about like audience reactions, because like I'm drafting something over the summer, right? Like I'm drafting a speech and I like write down a joke and I'm like in my head, I'm like, is this funny? Is this funny? Right. And then I'll like the next day I'll be like, this is complete trash. I'll like trash the entire draft, rewrite the draft. Then the next day I'll be like, you know what, this sucks. Rewrite it again. And I'll like keep on rewriting this joke like over and over again. And then I go to my first tournament of the season and people laugh and it's like, okay, it was funny. I'm good. I'm safe, y'all. Right? That's how it is like every single time. But I also do agree with you. It's just as much for me as it is for the audience. So I think the one thing that really like motivates me and like pushes me is like, so the events that I do, like you get to pick what you speak about, you get to pick your topic. And one of the events is about like societal issues. So knowing that I'm speaking about something that I care about and something that I want people to like hear, that like really motivates me because I know it's not talked about enough. Like it's all about just like sharing my story and sharing what I think is important. And that motivates me to just go through the season and like keep on going tournament to tournament, no matter what rank I get.
This is sort of like a running theme that I've noticed in the past like 20 minutes. I want to like outright say the thing. is just how important it is, the sort of the connection both with you and the art and the audience with the art, and sort of bridging it all together this nice little triangle. What was so huge for me, just inspiration in general, not even just with pandemic, but even now in a post-pandemic world where we're trying to get back into this constant flow of this stuff, is being able to like really take time, sink your teeth into, in my case, music, whatever pieces you're playing at a concert, and then you get a connection to it, and you care so deeply about it that then when it comes to the concert, it's like, all right, I need the audience to care as much as I do, and giving it your all to do that. The same thing as Matt also, also being a senior trying to get into college for performing arts and knowing how rough it is, just constantly sort of having goals along the way and benchmarks along the way to say, all right, I need to keep doing this, just have something to work toward. Since like August for me, it's been college auditions. But even before that, I mentioned earlier, like in JMEA's All State Orchestra, when that audition info came out, it was great. So it was finally, all right, this is the deadline. I have X amount of months. I now have a goal. I now have purpose to sit down and put effort into this. Because even though that's something where you're just sending out a video to 3 people you don't know, you still have to have that connection. So I think if you want to it goes from one place, the root is the connection to the art and then to the audience and connecting it all together. But in a more practical sense of outside of music, it is just having goals along the way to keep yourself on track.
Something that I mentioned in the beginning of the pandemic, because I was doing this job in the beginning of the pandemic, and so there was a lot of theorizing in the art community on what it's going to look like for art. And so obviously we're post-it now, we'll relatively post-it now. We're post-it now. And but what I was thinking about was that this could be a renaissance for us, right? So during the pandemic, we saw a lot of ingenious creation, and we saw a lot of new ways of creation. And so that's a very interesting thing that we got to see. So was there anything which you guys discovered about yourself? Because I was talking to my best friend the other day, because she was down from Howard, and you guys have seen her. It's Jasmine Livingston. She won a governor's award and that sort of thing. You guys have seen her on the YouTubes and social medias. But so I was talking to her, and I was like talking to her about what it was like in the pandemic with her. And she said, I had a lot of time to get to know myself. And so now I have a better understanding of what I want in a relationship and what I want just like in general. And so that was very interesting to talk to her about. And so what are some things that you realized? We're not going to get into everything about yourself, because I know that's a lot to talk about. I wouldn't want to talk about all the things that I discovered about myself during the pandemic. But what are some things that you discovered about yourself as an artist during the pandemic? If you guys would like to share. And then we're going to move on to another topic, but take your time with this one.
So personally for me, with discovering myself, there's a kind of like a lot to it, because like there's people who kind of inspire like why you're like this. So personally over the pandemic, me and my like friend group over the beginning of the pandemic, like I wouldn't say it's the best friend group, but like it did affect me a lot, and there was lots of drama in that friend group, so that kind of directed me towards a dramatic type of person, I guess. And then like once everything kind of got back in person, I'm kind of like, whoa, this is very different. And then I kind of like acted a bit different around newer people, and it's kind of for me, it's kind of like around different people, I have like different personalities, I guess I could say. But with finding myself, it's like you have to find that one thing. It's kind of like that one thing that just calls out to you. That's like, hey, I should try this, or like, this is me.
I definitely want to touch on that. This is also something I talked about recently, was that everyone has this core thing about them or things about them that are them no matter what. but then we're always going to be a different person in front of different people. So I'm a different person in front of my partner, of course, that I am in front of you guys, that I am in front of my parents, that I am in front of my best friend. We're all different people in front of them, but I still have the same similar course, so I still smile the same way, I still react and laugh to a lot of the same things, and I still have the same intonation. So there's a lot of things which are very similar between you in all of those cases. And so that's a very interesting thing to note, is that art gave you the opportunity, and friendship, which you gained from these artistic opportunities, helped you figure out what you were going to be in each situation. So it helped put yourself in, if we were to use a science term, it helped put yourself in different chemicals to see how you reacted. And so if you guys want to add to that.
Yeah, no, sure. I think yeah, I do think that that's an interesting topic for sure. The sense that, our art form is always the one thing that stays consistent throughout us as a human being, but our actual facade that we put on for each situation, and it may not be a facade, it's just, you're around a different person, so it's a different part of you that is shown. That's what actors do all day long.
Yeah, I have to say, acting is a very intense version of this, where you get the opportunity and you get specifically asked to try out all these different versions.
No, and it's true. I mean, I think for me, one thing that I did discover about myself more so is I think people hold acting on a really weird pedestal. And it's not in a sense, it's not a very difficult thing to do. I think it's a really hard thing to do, or else I probably would be much more successful than I am now. There's obviously a lot to learn. But Marlon Brando, not a great person, but a phenomenal actor, in my opinion, and one of my favorites, kind of always talked about that acting shouldn't be you portraying a character, but it's a part of you that is now forcing this person. So, I mean, the pandemic allowed me to kind of explore every facet of my brain that I possibly could find, in order to now expand a lot more of myself into different scenarios and into different characters that I'm playing. I think that acting a lot of the time is getting told that you need to be a character, when in a sense, I think that some of the best performances have come out of people finding what those traits are within themselves and then making that come to fruition through thought and through words and through posture and through circumstance and through setting. So I think the pandemic allowed me to do a lot of that kind of soul searching that I think actors need to do in order to do effective work.
As a director, I've noticed a lot of actors, and I remember I was an actor as well. I started in theater, and now I do film. You get cast in the role if you literally look that way, or you have a certain thing that they're asking for, right? But then often there's these opportunities where the director's coming in and is like, I'm just looking for a person who can do these lines in the way that is genuine, or whatever. And so, like, an example, I guess, is The Graduate. I have no idea if you guys seen it. I haven't seen it, but I do have an interesting fact about it. The actor who plays the main boy in it, when they saw him come in, he was different than the looks of everyone else. So the vague story of that is it's a boy who falls in love with an older woman. And so I don't know all the details, but that's just, and then they wanted to cast someone very debonair, very good looking, very like universally attractive is the word that I use when I'm looking for someone kind of like that, because I don't want to go strictly handsome, because there's a lot of different definitions of handsome, but universally attractive. And then they found this guy who's not unattractive, but he's kind of dorky, a little gangly, and they casted him, and the chemistry worked better and the balancing worked better. And so that's a very interesting thing, is that when you're taken into these sort of roles, and this is for anyone, right? So music, dance, speech, you have to put on a certain level of character to portray these things that you're discussing, or to portray these things that you're acting, and portray this level of music or whatever. And so that's a very interesting thing to bring up, definitely, is that part of you has to go into every artistic venture you go upon. Do we have anything to add?
Sure. So definitely in speech, there's always like some part of you that like goes into a speech. And in the events that I do, it's not as prominent. There is still some sort of like putting yourself into it and making sure that you are heard through what you're saying and how you're delivering it. But when you first said like what you find into yourself and like fitting yourself into different roles, there's another event in Speech and Debate, and it's all about interpretation. It's called Interp. And basically there's like some sort of playwright or like book or novel or I don't know, anything, any sort of written work. And you like kind of act out all these different characters. And I have friends that do this event, right? So it's sort of similar to acting. I'm not exactly sure how it works, so I can't like attest to that. But from my like point of view, it's like kind of the same thing. And they always say, like, I know some people that are like super shy when in like class or like anything else, and then they go up onto the stage and they're like a whole new person every time they start speaking, right? And they have all these different roles that they're trying to portray. Like one maybe this like really like energetic cheerleader, and then this other is like a sort of like dorky and like gangly guy, right? So like just fitting yourself into these roles, even if that's not like who you are in like real life, I feel it's like a really different experience every time that you do it, and it's sort of hard to do that. But I guess over the pandemic, it's like sort of kind of looking into yourself and seeing what part of you kind of fits into whatever you're trying to play or act or say.
To connect to both what Anika said and Matt said, for me, like when you put a certain part of yourself into a character, personally, it's just like after I put all that effort in, or after I put in a performance and people come and see it and they're like, wow, I didn't even know you could do that. I didn't know you could sing like this, act like this, dance like this. I always have a moment of like, I didn't know I could do that. So it's for me, it's like, I don't know, if I have to put in a lot of confidence into a character and I do it and people come up to me and say, wow, that was like, you're so that person or that role or whatever. I was like, wasn't I? I should take that with me like through my day-to-day life. And it gives you a boost of confidence and gives you a better sense of self.
I remember when I rewatched the film that I entered into the Governor's Awards. It's called Married Life. And it's a vignette of from when a couple gets married to when their daughter gets married, and so it's a bunch of different scenes. And I remember watching it after I finished editing it, and I was like, wow, that's really good. I didn't make that. I was like, so that just exists now. And then I had to like take a break, and I had to wait like a whole week before I watched it again and felt really connected to it. And now I know it's something I created, and we could get into what creation means when you release it and it's no longer yours anymore, and it's the child, and the child goes out and becomes its own thing. But that's a whole other discussion that we're not going to get into right now. But talking on how it feels when you first create something, and this can be creation immediately when you're performing, or creation in a more packaged way that you're putting out in that way. And it doesn't feel like it's yours. It feels, and this is something that people talk about, where it's like a spirit of art that's overcoming you. And I think it's about unlocking that and finding that in yourself. And so I guess pivoting more towards arts education, when you guys took these classes, it helped unlock this. And your teachers, hopefully you guys had wonderful arts teachers, and I can see that most of you have had some pretty good ones, the way you discuss arts education. It has helped you kind of discover this about yourself, and find that inner creation that's so valuable. And so do we want to comment about that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I don't think that any art person who makes art, anything under the ladder of art, whatever you call it, gets facilitated or moved forward or pushed into the ether without guidance. I think arts education is a huge sculptor in how people function and how they make art. We're really lucky here, like on the East Coast, from a theater and visual arts perspective. We get the best training. Sorry to the West Coast. I apologize, but we're near the city, and we have people that are close to the city or that come from the city or that know the vibe or they know the understanding or they know the people there. And it shows through the people and the product and the talent that they produce. I've been lucky enough to have a ton of different teachers, but when it comes to in high school, I have teachers outside of school that help me, but my main theater teacher at school is a huge part of why I ended up wanting to go to college for this. She took a huge chance. I was a freshman who was going to do ensemble in Chicago, couldn't dance, reminder. So again, you were going to imagine how that was going to go. Not great. That dance audition sucked. But regardless, I was going to do ensemble maybe, and, hopefully get in, middle school, I was used to, middle school things, but not anything, above that. And she cast me as a lead. And I got to play Billy Flynn as a freshman, which was huge for me. My school's 4,000 kids at my high school. So it's not a small school, and the talent pool there is nothing short of ridiculous. So for me to be able to have that, she didn't have very happy kids or very happy parents emailing her at all that they would let me get an opportunity over someone else. And, I've been lucky enough to lead the rest of the shows my 4 years at school, in and out of COVID, obviously. But she's the reason that I get to do an independent study now of my favorite show. I get to do the last 5 years. It's going to be the last show I do at my school before I leave. And I get to do it with my best friend, who's in the independent study with me. And, she allowed me to work on whatever I wanted to work on. My theater class, they would all work on something. And if I really wanted to work on this piece of work, she'd just send me into the auditorium and I could do it on my own, So she took a love and kind of a desire that I had for it that kind of sometimes overshadowed my work, because I was just like so excited to do theater that I didn't actually do it very effectively because I was like, this is awesome. And she kind of sculpted that love and appreciation that I had for it into actually driving a better piece of work. So yeah, huge appreciation for arts education. And I'm sure all of you feel the same.
Do you want to shout out that teacher by name?
I do. Mrs. Gail Ennerline. If she sees this or if she's on, Mrs. Gail Ennerline, you are the best human being. I love you dearly.
So, do we have any other responses to the question?
Yeah, I'd love to go. So I think particularly in speech and debate, like guidance is like a really key thing because this particular style of speaking is sort of niche from other like events, like, I don't know, Model Congress or something like that, right? So there's like different outlines and formats that you have to follow that have literally been going on for like the past 50 or 60 years. So there's like no changing that. But like when you first get into it, there's like guidance that's definitely needed. Like, this is how you write a speech. This is how you deliver solutions. This is how you speak, right? So guidance was definitely needed. But unfortunately, I come from a very small school in central New Jersey. So speech and debate wasn't a thing at my school. So what I ended up doing is I sort of got into the National Speech and Debate like Association, and I started my own club, and we started out with like 5 students. started out with 5 students. We sort of entered into like a competition, again, failed miserably. But we entered in, and it was sort of just all about experience. Like, we went to a competition, didn't get the best ranks, but we kind of came in together at a club meeting, talked about it, saw how we can move forward, and kept on doing that. That was sort of how we progressed through speech and debate. And then eventually we got like more people joining the club and more, and it was like we increased enrollment from like 5 to 40. So we really like kind of stepped up our game there. But what we did is we just got experience through that. And then it's sort of just like going to tournaments, and you see these like national speakers sometimes in your rounds, and then you sort of like, DM them on Instagram or like some sort of messaging app and be like, hey, what do you think of my speech? I hope it wasn't that like bad. Like, how'd you like it? Do you had any feedback for me? Right. So that's sort of how we learned. We would just go to tournaments, like look at our ballots and sort of like learn off of there.
Julia, my coworker who commented, she did a very similar thing at her school. She started her league with, I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, like 2 people, 3 people, including her, and then went from there and built it up, because you had that desire to create in a different way than what was given to you. And that's beautiful that you were able to create that opportunity, not only for yourself, but then for all those past you. Julia said 3 people. She's behind the scenes. So she was able to text me and let me know. Does anybody, Chloe, you have something?
For me, I, over the pandemic, developed a much greater sense of appreciation for having access to arts education, because around me, at least, and with my personal life, like I don't really have the resources and the ability to go out of town and pay for a vocal teacher or an acting class or go to a dance studio and things like that. So I found like the next best thing, which was going to school and being able to take classes. And I'm lucky that a lot of schools, when I first started entering high school, a lot of them offered performing arts education. So I'm able to go to school and take drama class, and then a couple periods later, go to choir class. So I'm honing 2 things at once. And then later on in the year, the musical starts up and the plays start up, and I get to participate in all of that. So I'm really grateful that even though I don't have access to it outside of my life, and I can't drive myself there, my parents can't drive me there, I can definitely have access to it in school.
One of the sort of the wildest things my band director ever said in the past few months that really just blew my mind. This year in our graduating class at band program at my school, a lot more people than really ever before are majoring in music. And he sort of just referenced it one day and said, this is an anomaly, and it should be an anomaly. And it took me a second to realize what he meant, but it's sort of what I really appreciate, or what I can recognize and appreciate for all of the music educators and arts educators in my school district and at my school, is that how many of them are doing it not for the kids who are, oh yeah, I'm going to go do this for the rest of my life, but for the kids who just need a way to express themselves in the moment, or need to learn how to express themselves through some sort of art, or just to give sort of structure or to give you a hobby. And that's what I think it really is for. I think that the arts teachers should not, they should, of course, and I'm so grateful for my band director and every music educator I've worked with how much encouragement they have given me, but sort of also realizing how much they have also given to dozens and hundreds of other people who may need the extra push, and how they just every single time will give the extra push and be the kindest people on planet Earth and the best people on planet Earth. They're all the best for that. I know there's so many people at my school who maybe who desperately need to be in band or orchestra or take art class because they just need to do it in the moment. And being able to just sort of have that and to offer that is a very noble profession. I think one of the most noble professions.
So that's lovely. Do we have any other comments before we kind of start to close down. And I definitely want to address Wendy's question, but we'll get there in just a moment. Because I feel like half of it was addressed naturally by the conversation, which is really great. But before we get to that, do you guys have anything else to add?
I wanted to add to something that was way early on, and I just kind of spaced out for a minute and forgot
Do
to
it.
add to it. We talked about what inspired us to keep going during the pandemic, and for me, people were talking about an audience and doing it for other people more than we do it for ourselves. And for me, it was the sense of being able to pass down the torch, right? So like meeting up with family over the summer and seeing my younger cousins. I've got a big family, and they all come and hug me. They're like, guess what I just started? And they're like, theater camp. And it's so exciting that they come and run to me and they tell me first. And it's super exciting because I get to tell them, you're going to love it. This is what I do. You can come to me if you have any questions, or if you want me to come see your shows. I'm always going to be in the front row. I always invite them to mine. And it's super exciting to have that sense of I get to share this love with you because you have a love of it as well.
And that's always what it ends up being, right? We've talked a lot about this whole time about connection and about not only the love of our art, but the love of the people around us, and the love of showing them what's going on with us so they can help understand what's going on with them. And I think that's something beautiful that comes from arts education. And you guys could go back and see all of the streams we've ever done for Arts at NJ, all of the content we've ever produced, and you could see that pretty much connection is the theme, if not explicitly stated, because that's what we're pushing for with arts education, is we're pushing for with the creation of art in general, is that connection and that love between one another, which is really wonderful. So I'm gonna mention Wendy's question. So I think we answered the second half. I can't see all of it because it was beautiful. I'm gonna put it on screen and see how much it. Oh, okay, cool. So I'm just gonna go put it back off screen so we can all see each other's faces a little bit bigger. But I want to address the first part. So she mentioned that she was still thinking about the statement that Matt made about not being good at dance, but it's okay. Don't feel called out because I've done the same thing. I am not very good at dance. I did dance my whole childhood, and I'm not a fan of it nowadays. So I love watching it, and I love watching people do it, but I don't enjoy doing it myself anymore. And so I kind of wanted to answer the question. She said, is it something because someone said something early on, or things just felt more fun and came easier? So I want to definitely address this across the board, but I want to address it for myself as well. So for me, it wasn't necessarily that someone said it early on. My family was always super on board with me being in dance and all that stuff. But what it ended up being for me was that it didn't flow as well, and it didn't come out of me as naturally, and I wasn't able to express my emotions and my thoughts through it as well as I do with film, and as well as I do when I am writing and that sort of thing. So that's how it came off to me, but I'm sure there's times when someone says something and it ruins it. But then people typically come back to it if it really is their flow. And so does anybody want to touch on this?
I definitely do. I have a little bit of a story from my childhood. I don't know if Camille, if you can relate to this, but I know I've heard like a lot of dancers early on here from teachers, usually in like ballet class, I think. You always hear the term "I can see your lunch," like when you're at the bar and they want you to have a flat stomach and they want you to stand tall. I'm very aware I'm not the slimmest or tallest or like strongest person in the class, but it sucks that that's what we teach young performers, is that you need to look a certain way and you need to present yourself in a certain way. Never mind the talent or the technique, it just matters your appearance and your presentation. So for me, that like kind of messed with my head early on, and I didn't think much of it until I wanted to start taking like tap classes again, and my teacher kept sticking me with the really little kids because she kept saying, that's where your skill is, that's where your skill is, you are dancing like a child. And I don't know, it didn't make me feel good about it, obviously. So I had to distance myself from dance, which is unfortunate because I enjoyed it. But comments like that, I don't think should be in any environment when you're making art.
Yeah, I mean, to touch on that, Yeah, I mean, for me, the dance situation, I was a little bit of an airhead, still am. I didn't quite put the pieces together that if I was gonna sing and I was gonna act, and that meant that I was gonna do musical theater, that I kind of had to dance. Um, I I ran into the problem in middle school, at least, that I had gotten leads early on only because I could sing. I was no actor whatsoever. It was literally just like, oh, it's a guy who can hold a note. We're gonna throw him in the front. Um, so I got the good old park and bark, which is not conducive to learning how to dance, because if you're gonna say, here, seventh grader, I'm just going to put you right here and you're just going to sing your song, and then everyone else is going to dance in the back. So while everyone else was actually learning how to dance, when it came time for me to actually, want to pursue this professionally, or, want to even do this on a scale of a high school situation where, if you're going to do Chicago, Val McKelly doesn't just like sit there while everyone else does the dance. They do it all at the same time. It's why they're the lead. I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't understand that was the case. So, obviously I started taking dance classes, which was not good. Not good. Not a fun time. I took them and, suffered through them in a sense, so that I could make it through my college auditions, because, you have to dance. And it's not very fun when you're in a group and you can't hold your own. And it's also a situation where I had, 3 to 4 years of not having many friends from that standpoint, of school, where, I taught myself how to play all these instruments. So I was able to, teach myself how to play the guitar, the piano, the bass. And I didn't understand how I was doing it. I was just doing it because it was a way I just had to do it. And acting, the same thing. I started to take lessons once I realized that I was good at it, but I just kind of started to do it and it kind of worked out. And I always had a serious problem with dance because it never worked out. It still doesn't work out. And I am still, taking lessons for it, and it doesn't work out. And it's, again, kind of Jocelyn, kind of way, it just doesn't happen for me. No matter, I can get the moves and I can remember them, I just don't look as effective doing them. And that's not even a self-critique. That's just an all-around consensus. So it just, for me, it's never been a viable art form to get the story across. I definitely think it's amazing, and I appreciate way more when people do that. I mean, I appreciate acting and all that stuff, but, seeing someone do something so beautifully that I could never really do myself, in the same way that I would want it to look. Yeah, wow. It's awesome. It's so cool, for sure.
Yeah, visual art is very similar to me too. Like I did props because I could construct things together to look like certain things, but the buck stops when it comes to drawing like a really beautiful bird or anything like that. I would not be able to create it in that way. And I think what we're kind of discussing is that you can take lessons and you can get as good as you can get, but what really transcends a fantastic dancer, a fantastic actor, fantastic singer is someone who past talent really feels it and really has that flow with it and has had positive experiences with it. Chloe, that's horrible that that's happened to you. That happened to me too. There's things where I was told when I was acting that I was too big to do roles that were good enough to do like lead roles. And that wasn't the whole reason I didn't do it, but it was part of it that I was like, I knew that I wasn't good enough to overcome what I looked like in that way. And so I just didn't try that. And then I found my other better flow. And so I think what it really comes down to is finding the thing that helps you flow. And that's why we want to have cohesive arts education. We want to have everything that we possibly can give students across the board. We want to give them all the disciplines. We want you to have art, we want you to have dance, we want you to have singing, we want you to have music, we want you to have all of it, so that anything that clicks with you will be the thing that helps you balance yourself, like you said earlier, equilibrium. And so do we have anything to comment about that? I know, Camilla, if you have anything to say about it, because we've been talking about dance specifically, but we've been using it as an example. We've basically just been talking about how phenomenal you are that you can do the thing that we can't.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's not the easiest of things. I've always grown up on it. I've danced my whole life, and I just push past those because as a dancer, you do hit those like moments where you're like, do I want to continue this? Do I not want to continue this? Is it going to be too much for me or not? So you just like push past it, and then it's just always going to be something like you love yourself, so you just do it because you love it, basically.
What made you push past it? Was it the love of the art or the love of the action of it?
It was everything. The like performing, like being able to create something, being able to express my body and have it move in ways that like I surprise myself every day, like, oh, I like this, oh, I like this, and just putting everything together.
Absolutely. So it's the flow. Yeah.
I definitely agree with like the flow, because I know in some events, like sometimes when you just like first enter speech and debate, you just like connect with the wrong event. Like sometimes you go in, you start with an event and you're like, this is easy. Like this seems like something I can do. And you do it and it's like, yeah, I can do it. I'm like great at doing it. I'm okay with doing it. But it's not like me. Like this isn't what I really want to do. It's because like you're forced into it, so it's not completely natural. And then you find another event that you think is also really interesting. And you go into that event and you're like, okay, this is me. This is what I want to do. This is like a place where I can talk about what I want people to hear. And I think like some things just come very naturally, and there's like it just clicks.
So Andrew, I saw you had well, we can get to you in a second, Matt. Andrew, I saw you had your hand up like a while ago. Do you want to touch on what you were thinking about, or did you forget it, or do we move past it?
No, I think I got to get in what I was getting in.
Okay, cool.
Maybe I was stretching. I don't know.
I don't know. I just didn't want to neglect the group. Okay.
No, I appreciate it. No, I'm all good.
Okay, Matt, go ahead.
No worries. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think especially touching on the like barrier part of the conversation. I think performers have to deal with that all the time. I mean, I think most people do, but I think performers have a serious dilemma with, do I want to do this? It's a constant state of vulnerability, pressure, getting a script at 9:00 in the morning and having to go to an audition at 9:00 at night, and you have to do school and you have to get that done so that a person could get paid if you book that job. That kind of stuff, barriers come up. Yeah. Do I want to do this? You're not getting into college. Do I want to do this? Am I good enough to do this? I'm surrounded by a bunch of people that are really good, that have one extra thing. It's really hard to differentiate, your ability. I think for one thing, if you question it too much, then you shouldn't do it, because I think if your mind is giving you that many doubts of things, you kind of get messed up. But I think that's what's great about teachers, for sure. I think that like teachers being able to like help you with that barrier and break that down, and being a like safe haven for I don't know, a sense of desperation is super important. I think that teachers are kind of, at least for me, I mean, I ran into a lot of conflict when, the voice change was not fun, and I'm a singer. I act and sing at the same time. So I ran into a problem of like, this isn't working the way I want it to. Yeah, teachers for sure being able to kind of help me push through that, and break down that kind of mental blockade that still affects me now, even as someone who's much past that situation, for sure.
So, do we have anything else to add before we start to close down? We ran a little past the time that we were going to end, but you all are so interesting and have so much life experience that you're so willing to share that I wanted to keep talking and keep vibing. So, do you have anything else to add before we close down? Okay, rock and roll. So I have a last comment from Wendy. She said, "Thanks for those very thoughtful answers. Love the stories of success and the fact that you all keep pushing past and trying, and I appreciate the idea of the flow. Thank you, Wendy, for all your lovely comments and helping guide the conversation. So I want to thank everybody who tuned in tonight. I want to thank everyone who's been on the stream. You all have been very, very interesting and very, very inspiring, and I appreciate that. I want to shout out some things. Definitely, yes, we just had a comment, so which I'm about to touch on right now. So those are in the definite terms of more Arts at NJ opportunities. And so what are some things that are going on with Arts at NJ? And then also please check out and subscribe to this YouTube channel and subscribe to our NJ Governors Award YouTube channels. We have 66 subscribers on the Governors Awards YouTube channel. I'd like to get it to 100, so our link is easier to find. Also, it'd be great for you guys because you'll see every time we post and it'll come up on your feed. And then check out our Instagrams, our social medias. We're under Arts at NJ, we're under NJGAAE, and we're under Arts Ed Now. And definitely go check out Arts Ed Now, especially all you students, because that's really who we're talking to. We're talking to you guys because we want you to, if you're seniors, you're leaving, but you had a great time. And so we want you guys to tell your stories just like you did now and show us why we're doing this and why we're all pushing along for arts education. And that was really wonderful that we got to discuss that today. So some things that are coming up, because March is a crazy month because it is Art in Our Schools month. Very exciting. So we have Festival Fun Facts, which has been happening every Wednesday. Our last installment will be on the 30th. Then we have one this Wednesday. And that is for the New Jersey State and Solo and Ensemble Festival. And definitely I would say, Andrew, check that one out. And anyone who plays an instrument, definitely check that one out. It's on our website, which I'll put up right here, because that is a music competition also for singers. So definitely check that out. It's music performance. And so the registration opened yesterday, which is very exciting. So we'll talk more about that tomorrow. Don't worry about it. And then we have the Arts Educator Roundtable happening on the 23rd. You can still sign up for that. And then also any students who tuned in or any teachers who want to share this, you can still sign up for the future roundtables that we're going to have because we definitely want to do more of this. And then we have a TikTok challenge, which you'll see more of, and I can go look at the details. I think she put it in the comments. It's why are you for #ArtsEdNow? Get creative and show us why you are for #ArtsEdNow, which is the statewide campaign that we have for arts advocacy. Just to do exactly what you guys are doing right now of going out and telling your story is exactly what we're asking for. And you can do that on TikTok, you can do that on Instagram, do that anywhere, and just tag us. And then we're doing social media takeovers, which you can look on our Instagram for more information. And then we have newsletters and blogs. You can find all this information on our social medias and our website. So that was a lot of talking on my half. Thank you all for being here. Thank you so much for your lovely thoughts. I hope you have a great night, a very safe night, and keep going. And I look forward to seeing where all of you go. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Good luck, everyone.